You've been told that thinking too much can paralyze you. But what if I told you that the very act of thinking, if done practically, can be your most powerful weapon? William James, one of the greatest minds in philosophy and psychology, didn't believe in theories detached from real life. For him, truth wasn't a distant abstract ideal, but something forged in action, in decisions, in the messy and beautiful complexity of daily life. In this video, you'll finally understand how the power of pragmatic thinking can transform your life from a passive sequence of events to a deliberate construction of purpose. You're not just here to consume ideas, you're here to test them, to live them, to mold your reality. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn today could be the key to escaping indecision forever. It's not about thinking more. It's about thinking better, thinking with intent, and moving through life with the clarity and strength that William James taught over a century ago. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to move through life with purpose, while others remain trapped in hesitation, consider this. The key difference often lies not in their intelligence, but in the practical application of their thoughts. William James believed that ideas are not inert. They are tools, instruments that must be tested and proven through action. The true value of a belief or idea emerges only when it makes a tangible difference in your lived experience. Imagine for a moment how your life would change if every thought you had was filtered through this pragmatic lens. How many of your current beliefs would survive the test of practicality? James challenged us to discard sterile intellectualism in favor of a more dynamic engagement with reality. This is not about thinking more, but thinking better, thinking in a way that actively shapes your decisions, behaviors, and ultimately your destiny. So let me ask you, when was the last time you paused to examine whether your beliefs are serving you or merely inherited from others without question? The beauty of William James's pragmatism lies in its radical simplicity. If a belief works for you, if it leads to better outcomes, greater resilience, and a deeper sense of meaning, then it is true, at least for you. This perspective shatters the conventional notion of objective, detached truth and replaces it with a more personal, functional criterion. But it also places an enormous responsibility on you, the thinker, to constantly evaluate and adapt your beliefs based on their consequences. Have you noticed how often we cling to ideas that no longer serve us, simply out of habit or fear of change? James would argue that such inertia is not only irrational but deeply detrimental to personal growth. In fact, he saw the human capacity for change not as a rare gift, but as an inherent trait waiting to be activated through deliberate practice. This is why pragmatism is not merely a philosophical theory, but a way of life. It invites you to become an active participant in the construction of your reality, to move from passively absorbing information to strategically selecting beliefs that empower you. If you find this approach liberating, you might consider subscribing to this channel, where we continue to explore transformative ideas from William James and other great minds. It's more than content. It's an invitation to think more deeply, live more deliberately, and engage with your existence in a more meaningful way. Now, think about this. What would happen if you approached your doubts and fears not as obstacles to avoid, but as hypotheses to test? This is the pragmatic method in action, treating uncertainty as an opportunity for experimentation rather than a reason for paralysis. Instead of waiting for perfect certainty, you take a step forward, observe the results, and adjust accordingly. Life, then, becomes an ongoing experiment, where each choice provides valuable feedback. This mindset transforms failure from a source of shame into a crucial part of the learning process. For James, the utility of a belief was often revealed not in its initial success, but in how it enabled the believer to adapt and persist in the face of setbacks. So ask yourself, Are you allowing fear of failure to dictate your choices, or are you using each experience, whether successful or not, as data to refine your path? James's vision of pragmatism emphasizes that beliefs should be evaluated not solely on their logical coherence, but on their practical effects. This shift from abstract theorizing to practical engagement can be profoundly liberating. It removes the burden of seeking an ultimate, unchanging truth, and instead empowers you to seek what works, what enhances your life, your relationships, your work, and your well-being. Imagine the implications of this for your personal and professional life. How many decisions have you delayed because you were waiting for absolute certainty? How much progress have you forfeited because you feared the possibility of being wrong? Pragmatism offers you a way out of this paralysis. Act on what seems most promising, assess the outcomes, and adjust your course as needed. James's approach doesn't eliminate the need for reflection or caution, but it reframes them as steps within a larger process of continuous adaptation. In this sense, pragmatism is inherently optimistic. It assumes that through action and experience, you can progressively refine your understanding and improve your circumstances. As you continue to engage with these ideas, consider how they might reshape your approach to everyday challenges. What belief could you start testing today that might lead to a better outcome tomorrow? Perhaps it's the belief that you're capable of changing careers, starting a new relationship, or developing a healthier habit. Whatever it is, pragmatism invites you to move beyond mere contemplation and into the realm of purposeful action. The journey of applying. William James's pragmatic philosophy is not one of instant transformation, but of gradual, deliberate evolution. Each step you take, each belief you test, becomes a building block in the construction of a life that is not only intellectually coherent, but practically effective. And in a world saturated with passive consumption and superficial thinking, adopting this pragmatic mindset sets you apart as someone who actively shapes their destiny. So, as we continue to explore James's profound insights, remember, this is not about accumulating knowledge for its own sake, but about equipping yourself with the tools to navigate life more effectively. If that resonates with you, make sure to stay connected with this channel, where every video is designed to challenge your assumptions, expand your thinking, and support your journey toward a more deliberate and empowered existence. Building on this foundation, let's delve deeper into how pragmatism reshapes not just isolated decisions, but your entire orientation toward life. William James argued that the function of thought is not to mirror an abstract, objective reality, but to guide action. This insight shifts the focus from the correctness of beliefs to their usefulness, to their ability to solve problems and help navigate the complexities of existence. Consider how this could change the way you approach every dilemma, every choice, every moment of hesitation. Rather than becoming paralyzed by the fear of being wrong, pragmatism invites you to ask, what belief or course of action will serve me best right now? This is not an excuse for impulsivity or reckless behavior, but an encouragement to embrace the dynamic nature of life, where certainty is rare and adaptability is essential. James's perspective was revolutionary because it freed individuals from the tyranny of static dogmatic thinking. Instead, it empowered them to see beliefs as evolving tools, capable of refinement through experience. Imagine approaching your personal relationships, your career, even your health with this mindset. Instead of clinging to rigid doctrines or societal expectations, you would continually assess whether your current strategies are producing the outcomes you desire. If not, you would feel no shame in modifying them. How often do we stubbornly persist in patterns that no longer serve us, simply because we've internalized the idea that consistency is a virtue in itself? James would challenge that notion, suggesting that true integrity lies not in blind consistency, but in a commitment to pursue what is most effective, most enriching, most aligned with your evolving values. This approach demands courage, the courage to question long-held assumptions, to risk change, to face the discomfort of uncertainty. But it also offers liberation, the freedom to shape your life deliberately, rather than being shaped passively by forces you've never examined. Think about a recent decision you made. Did you choose based on what would work best for your goals, or did you default to what felt familiar or socially acceptable? Pragmatism pushes you to move beyond such defaults, to become the active architect of your own destiny. It transforms decision-making from a source of anxiety into an opportunity for creative problem-solving. William James emphasized that the pragmatic method is not merely theoretical, it is empirical. Beliefs must be tested in the crucible of experience. Only through their practical consequences can their value be truly known. This stance places a high premium on flexibility and responsiveness. If a belief fails to produce beneficial outcomes, pragmatism mandates that it be reconsidered, modified, or even discarded. Such a stance requires intellectual humility, the willingness to admit that you might be wrong, and that being wrong is not a personal failing but an invitation to learn and grow. Asterisk, how comfortable are you with being wrong? Do you see it as a threat to your identity, or as a necessary step in the pursuit of wisdom? James would urge you to embrace the latter perspective, to see mistakes not as endpoints but as valuable feedback. In this way, pragmatism becomes a philosophy of resilience. It teaches you to view life as a series of experiments, where each outcome, whether success or failure, contributes to a deeper understanding of yourself and the world. This experimental attitude fosters a kind of pragmatic optimism, the belief that through persistent engagement and adaptation, progress is always possible. Consider how this approach contrasts with more rigid worldviews that seek absolute certainty or immutable principles. Such worldviews often lead to stagnation, defensiveness, and an aversion to novelty. Pragmatism, by contrast, celebrates the provisional nature of human knowledge and the endless potential for innovation and improvement. This perspective has profound implications for personal growth. It suggests that no matter where you currently find yourself, no matter how entrenched your habits, how fixed your identity may seem, you possess the capacity to change. You are not condemned to repeat the same patterns indefinitely. Instead, you can deliberately choose beliefs and actions that better align with your evolving understanding of what leads to a fulfilling life. Isn't that an empowering thought? To realize that you are not the passive product of your circumstances, but an active agent capable of reshaping them? This realization can be both exhilarating and daunting. It demands that you take responsibility for your choices and their consequences. But it also means that you are never truly stuck. There is always a path forward, always another experiment to conduct, another hypothesis to test. In professional contexts, this pragmatic approach can revolutionize the way you think about success and failure. Rather than viewing a failed project as a definitive judgment on your abilities, you can see it as valuable data informing your next attempt. This mindset fosters innovation, creativity, and a willingness to take calculated risks, all essential qualities in a rapidly changing world. Similarly, in personal relationships, pragmatism encourages you to evaluate whether your current ways of interacting foster the kind of connections you desire. If not, it invites you to experiment with new approaches, to communicate more effectively, to set healthier boundaries, to cultivate empathy and understanding. The goal is not perfection, but continuous improvement, always striving for more fulfilling and harmonious interactions. At its core, pragmatism is a call to action. It rejects passivity and fatalism in favor of deliberate engagement with the world. It challenges you to ask continuously, is this working? Is this helping me become the person I want to be? Is this belief or behavior leading to the outcomes I desire? Such questions keep you oriented toward growth, prevent stagnation, and empower you to navigate life's uncertainties with greater confidence and clarity. As you internalize this pragmatic approach, you may notice a subtle but profound shift in your mindset. Decisions become less fraught with anxiety because you recognize that no choice is final, no mistake irredeemable. Every action is an opportunity to gather information, to learn, to adjust your course. Life becomes a dynamic process of exploration and refinement. This, ultimately, is the gift of William James's pragmatism. It offers a framework for living that is both flexible and purposeful, grounded in the realities of experience, yet oriented toward continual improvement. It respects the complexity and variability of human life, while providing practical tools for navigating it more effectively. As we move forward, consider how you might begin to apply this pragmatic mindset in your own life. What small belief or behavior could you experiment with today, not as a final solution, but as a test, a step toward greater alignment with your goals and values? Remember, the point is not to achieve perfection, but to engage actively with the process of becoming, a process that, if approached with courage and curiosity, can lead to a more fulfilling and authentic existence. As we progress further, it becomes increasingly evident that William James's pragmatism is not only a tool for personal empowerment, but also a profound framework for navigating uncertainty. In a world where information overload often paralyzes action, his philosophy serves as a compass, guiding decisions through the fog of ambiguity. The pragmatic method encourages you to focus not on the quest for ultimate certainty, but on what works here and now, within the constraints and opportunities of your immediate context. This orientation fundamentally alters your relationship with uncertainty. Rather than seeing ambiguity as a threat, pragmatism reframes it as an inevitable and even valuable aspect of human existence. James argued that life is inherently uncertain, and that waiting for complete certainty before acting is not only impractical but self-defeating. Instead, he urged embracing uncertainty as the very condition that makes meaningful action possible. Consider how this perspective could transform the way you approach major life decisions, whether to change careers, start a new relationship, relocate to a new city, or pursue a long-held dream. Pragmatism liberates you from the need to have every variable accounted for, every risk mitigated, and every outcome guaranteed before moving forward. Instead, it empowers you to make decisions based on what seems most promising in the present, with the understanding that you can always adjust course as new information and experiences arise. This pragmatic approach fosters a more flexible and resilient mindset. It teaches you to view setbacks not as definitive failures but as feedback, as part of the ongoing process of refining your beliefs and strategies. James believed that the capacity to adapt in response to changing circumstances is a fundamental human strength, one that can be cultivated through practice and reflection. Have you ever hesitated to take a significant step in your life because you were waiting for absolute certainty? How many opportunities might you have missed because you feared making the wrong choice? Pragmatism invites you to reframe such hesitation not as a prudent safeguard, but as a potentially paralyzing constraint. It challenges you to consider that action, even when imperfect, often leads to greater clarity than endless deliberation. In this way, pragmatism is inherently action-oriented. It values the iterative process of experimentation over static theorizing. Each decision, each risk, each venture into the unknown becomes an opportunity to gather data, to learn, and to evolve. This perspective fosters a kind of practical wisdom and understanding that the quality of your life is shaped less by the precision of your initial plans, and more by your willingness to engage with the unfolding complexities of reality. Furthermore, James's emphasis on the experiential validation of beliefs underscores the importance of staying attuned to the outcomes of your actions. Pragmatism is not about blind experimentation but about thoughtful engagement with consequences. It encourages a continuous feedback loop: act, observe, reflect, and adjust. This process cultivates both humility and confidence. The humility to recognize when an approach is not working, and the confidence to pivot toward more effective alternatives. In professional settings, this pragmatic mindset can foster innovation and adaptability. Organizations that embrace a culture of experimentation tend to be more resilient in the face of market shifts, technological disruptions, and evolving consumer preferences. By contrast, those that cling rigidly to established practices often struggle to remain competitive. On an individual level, professionals who apply pragmatic principles are more likely to take initiative, pursue continuous learning, and seize emerging opportunities. Similarly, in personal development, pragmatism encourages you to treat self-improvement not as a linear path toward a fixed ideal, but as a dynamic process of exploration and refinement. This approach acknowledges that your goals, values, and circumstances will inevitably evolve over time, and that personal growth requires an ongoing commitment to reassessing and recalibrating your efforts in light of new experiences. Imagine applying this pragmatic ethos to your relationships. Instead of adhering to rigid expectations about how a relationship should function, you could focus on what actually promotes connection, trust, and mutual fulfillment. If a particular dynamic is not yielding the desired outcomes, pragmatism invites you to explore alternative approaches, fostering a more adaptive and responsive way of relating to others. This relational pragmatism is especially valuable in a world where traditional social scripts are increasingly in flux. By prioritizing practical outcomes over adherence to conventional norms, you gain the flexibility to co-create relationships that are uniquely suited to your and your partner's evolving needs and aspirations. At a broader societal level, pragmatism offers a framework for addressing complex social and political challenges. By focusing on what works in practice, rather than on ideological purity or theoretical consistency, pragmatic approaches can facilitate more effective policymaking and end conflict resolution. This emphasis on practical outcomes over abstract principles promotes a more inclusive and solution-oriented discourse, one that values diverse perspectives and collaborative problem-solving. However, embracing pragmatism also requires vigilance against certain pitfalls. One risk is the temptation to prioritize short-term utility over long-term consequences. Pragmatism does not advocate for expediency at the expense of ethical considerations. Rather, it calls for a nuanced evaluation of outcomes, taking into account both immediate and extended impacts. This requires cultivating a habit of reflective judgment, weighing not only what works now but also what will sustain well-being and flourishing over time. Another potential challenge is the discomfort that comes with living in a state of ongoing uncertainty and provisionality. For many, the desire for definitive answers and stable foundations is deeply ingrained. Pragmatism asks you to relinquish this craving for certainty in favor of a more dynamic engagement with life's complexities. This can be unsettling, but it is also profoundly liberating, opening up new possibilities for growth, creativity, and fulfillment. Consider how adopting this pragmatic stance might alter your approach to risk-taking. Would you be more willing to pursue new ventures, experiment with unfamiliar strategies, or step outside your comfort zone? Pragmatism provides a rationale for doing so. By viewing each risk as an experiment, you can transform fear of failure into an opportunity for learning and innovation. Moreover, pragmatism encourages a more compassionate and empathetic approach to others. Recognizing that everyone is engaged in their own process of pragmatic experimentation can foster greater tolerance and understanding. Instead of judging others for their choices, you might appreciate the complexities and constraints that shape their decisions. This pragmatic empathy can enhance your interpersonal relationships and contribute to a more supportive and collaborative social environment. As we reflect on these insights, it's worth asking, how might you begin to cultivate a more pragmatic approach in your own life? What small experiment could you undertake today to test a new belief, strategy, or behavior? Remember, the goal is not to find a perfect solution but to engage actively with the process of living, to embrace the iterative journey of testing, learning, and adapting. By adopting this pragmatic mindset, you position yourself to navigate life's uncertainties with greater resilience, creativity, and purpose. You become not a passive recipient of circumstances, but an active agent in shaping your destiny. This is the essence of William James's pragmatism, a call to live deliberately, to engage fully with the world, and to continuously refine your approach in pursuit of a more fulfilling and meaningful existence. Have you ever challenged one of your most cherished beliefs simply because it no longer serves you? If not, what's stopping you? As we deepen our understanding of William James's pragmatism, it becomes impossible to ignore the profound ethical dimension embedded within his philosophy. Pragmatism is not a mere strategy for effective decision-making. It is also a call to assume moral responsibility for the consequences of your beliefs and actions. James insisted that ideas are not value-neutral abstractions. They shape lives, relationships, societies, and even the trajectory of history itself. This perspective demands a heightened awareness of the ripple effects generated by your choices. Every belief you hold, every action you take, sets in motion a chain of events that extends far beyond your immediate experience. Pragmatism compels you to consider these broader implications, to weigh the potential benefits and harms, and to make choices that contribute positively to your own flourishing and that of others. How often do we adopt beliefs simply because they are convenient or self-serving without considering their impact on those around us? James's pragmatic ethics challenges this tendency by asserting that beliefs must be evaluated not only by their personal utility, but also by their social consequences. A belief that benefits you while harming others fails the pragmatic test of contributing to the overall betterment of human life. Consider, for example, how this principle applies to contemporary debates about technology, the environment, or public health. Pragmatism urges policymakers, business leaders, and individuals alike to assess not only the immediate advantages of a given innovation or policy, but also its long-term effects on community well-being, ecological sustainability, and social justice. This ethical orientation fosters a more holistic approach to problem solving, one that transcends narrow self-interest in favor of collective flourishing. At a personal level, pragmatic ethics invites you to reflect on how your daily habits, routines, and interpersonal behaviors influence the well-being of those in your orbit. Do your actions foster connection, trust, and mutual support, or do they contribute to division, misunderstanding, and harm? James's philosophy encouraged a continual process of ethical reflection, grounded in the practical consequences of your conduct. This ethical pragmatism also extends to the cultivation of virtues such as honesty, compassion, and courage. Are not abstract ideals to be admired from a distance, but practical tools for navigating the complexities of human relationships. By embodying such virtues in your daily interactions, you actively contribute to creating a more humane and supportive social environment. James recognized that ethical decision-making is rarely straightforward. Life's complexities often present situations where competing values and interests must be balanced. Pragmatism offers a flexible framework for negotiating these dilemmas, prioritizing practical outcomes over rigid adherence to doctrinal rules. This approach fosters a more context-sensitive and empathetic engagement with moral challenges. Moreover, pragmatism emphasizes the importance of ongoing ethical learning. Just as scientific theories are continually revised in light of new evidence, your moral beliefs and practices must be subject to periodic re-evaluation. This requires humility, the acknowledgement that your current ethical framework may be incomplete or flawed, and a commitment to seeking better ways of promoting well-being and justice. Imagine how this pragmatic approach could influence your professional life. As a leader, educator, or entrepreneur, you are constantly faced with decisions that affect others. Pragmatism encourages you to consider not only what will maximize short-term profits or efficiencies, but also what will contribute to the long-term health and resilience of your organization and community. This perspective fosters a more responsible and sustainable approach to leadership and innovation. Similarly, in your personal relationships, pragmatic ethics invites you to prioritize behaviors that nurture trust, empathy, and mutual respect. It encourages you to move beyond self-centered calculations and to consider how your actions contribute to the collective well-being of your family, friends, and broader social networks. This relational orientation fosters deeper connections and a more fulfilling social life. At the societal level, pragmatic ethics challenges rigid ideological divisions by promoting a focus on shared goals and practical solutions. In a world increasingly polarized by competing moral frameworks, pragmatism offers a pathway toward constructive dialogue and collaborative problem-solving. By emphasizing the practical consequences of policies and practices, rather than abstract ideological purity, pragmatic approaches can facilitate more inclusive and effective governance. However, this pragmatic emphasis on consequences does not negate the importance of principles. Rather, it reframes principles as dynamic guides that must be continually tested and refined through experience. This perspective fosters a more nuanced and adaptable approach to ethics, one that is sensitive to the complexities and contingencies of real-life situations. Reflect on how you currently approach ethical decisions. Do you rely on fixed rules, or are you open to revising your moral commitments in light of new experiences and insights? Pragmatism encourages the latter, promoting an ethical stance that is both principled and responsive, grounded in a commitment to enhancing human well-being through thoughtful action. Moreover, James's pragmatic ethics underscores the interdependence of individual and collective flourishing. Your personal well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of others. This recognition fosters a sense of moral responsibility that extends beyond the boundaries of self-interest, motivating you to contribute positively to the communities and systems of which you are a part. Consider how this awareness might influence your engagement with social and political issues. Pragmatism invites you to move beyond partisan loyalties and ideological certainties, focusing instead on practical strategies for promoting justice, equity, and sustainability. It encourages a more pragmatic activism, one that prioritizes outcomes over rhetoric and seeks to bridge divides through collaborative problem-solving. This pragmatic approach to ethics also supports a more compassionate engagement with human fallibility. Recognizing that everyone is navigating complex and often conflicting values fosters greater empathy and tolerance. Rather than judging others harshly for their mistakes or moral inconsistencies, You can appreciate the challenges inherent in ethical decision-making and support efforts toward growth and improvement. Have you considered how your current beliefs and actions contribute to the well-being of those around you? Are there ways you might adjust your behavior to promote greater harmony and mutual support within your relationships and communities? By embracing pragmatic ethics, you commit to a life of ongoing moral inquiry and constructive engagement. You acknowledge that ethical perfection is unattainable, but that continual effort toward better outcomes is both possible and necessary. This orientation fosters a more resilient and hopeful approach to moral life, one that values progress over perfection and learning over dogma. In sum, William James's pragmatism offers not only a method for effective decision-making but also a profound ethical vision, a call to align your beliefs and actions with the goal of enhancing human flourishing. It invites you to take responsibility for the consequences of your choices, to engage empathetically with others, and to contribute to the creation of a more just and compassionate world. As you reflect on these ideas, consider what practical steps you might take to embody this pragmatic ethics in your own life. What habits could you cultivate? What relationships could you strengthen? And what causes could you support to promote greater well-being for yourself and those around you? Extending our exploration, it becomes crucial to recognize that William James's pragmatism is fundamentally intertwined with his views on human freedom and the power of personal agency. Unlike deterministic philosophies that depict human beings as passive products of their environments or biological impulses, James asserted that we possess an extraordinary capacity for choice, a capacity that is both liberating and demanding. James, the act of choosing is not merely an isolated event, but the very process through which personal identity and character are forged. He argued that by making decisions, especially in the face of uncertainty and risk, individuals actively participate in the construction of their own realities. This perspective positions you not as a spectator of life, but as its co-creator, responsible for shaping the trajectory of your existence through your choices and commitments. Consider how empowering this view can be. Rather than seeing yourself as at the mercy of external circumstances, pragmatism invites you to recognize your inherent agency. Even in situations where your options appear limited, you retain the freedom to interpret, respond, and act in ways that align with your evolving values and goals. This recognition transforms challenges from insurmountable obstacles into opportunities for creative problem-solving and personal growth. James's insistence on the primacy of will resonates deeply. In his broader philosophical project, he famously declared that the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. This insight underscores the central role of mindset in shaping not only how you perceive the world but also how you engage with it. Your beliefs, attitudes, and intentions are not passive reflections of reality. They are dynamic forces that actively influence your behavior and consequently, your outcomes. Have you ever stopped to consider how your current mindset is shaping the trajectory of your life? Are you embracing your agency and making deliberate choices, or are you allowing external circumstances and unexamined habits to dictate your path? James's pragmatism encourages you to cultivate an intentional relationship with your own will. Rather than waiting for perfect clarity or external validation, you are invited to take initiative, to make commitments, and to engage actively with the world. This proactive stance fosters a sense of ownership over your life, empowering you to pursue goals that reflect your authentic values and aspirations. Moreover, James emphasized that the exercise of will is most vital precisely when certainty is absent. He introduced the concept of the will to believe as a response to the paralyzing effects of skepticism and doubt. According to James, there are situations, particularly in matters of personal meaning and moral commitment, where waiting for conclusive evidence is neither possible nor desirable. In such cases, he argued, it is both rational and necessary to make a leap of faith, to commit to a belief or course of action despite incomplete information. This pragmatic defense of faith and commitment challenges the notion that rational decision-making requires absolute certainty. Instead, it affirms the legitimacy of acting on plausible beliefs when the stakes are significant and the consequences of an action are substantial. This perspective validates many of the decisions you face in everyday life where definitive evidence is often unavailable and yet choices must still be made. Imagine how this understanding could transform your approach to major life decisions. Rather than becoming paralyzed by analysis or trapped in a cycle of indecision, you could embrace the pragmatic insight that action itself generates clarity. By taking steps based on your best available judgments, you engage with reality in a way that produces feedback, refines your understanding, and propels you forward. James's emphasis on the constructive power of will also highlights the importance of cultivating habits that support your chosen commitments. He recognized that while individual acts of will are significant, it is through the consistent repetition of such acts, through habit formation, that enduring change occurs. This insight anticipates contemporary research in psychology and behavioral science, which underscores the role of habits in shaping long-term outcomes. By aligning your habits with your goals and values, you transform your will from a sporadic force into a sustained engine of personal development. This process requires deliberate effort, reflection, and persistence, but it also offers the reward of greater coherence between your intentions and your lived reality. Consider how you might apply this principle to your current challenges. Are there habits you could cultivate that would support your aspirations? Are there patterns you could disrupt that are undermining your progress? Pragmatism invites you to view these questions not as abstract contemplations, but as practical experiments, opportunities to test new strategies and observe their effects. Moreover, James's conception of agency extends beyond individual self-improvement to encompass collective and societal dimensions. He believed that by exercising their freedom responsibly, individuals contribute to the shaping of social norms, institutions, and cultures. This perspective underscores the interdependence of personal and collective agency, suggesting that your choices have implications that ripple outward, influencing the broader communities of which you are a part. Reflect on how your personal commitments intersect with social responsibilities. Are you using your agency to contribute positively to your community, to advocate for causes you believe in, to support the well-being of others? Pragmatism encourages an engaged and participatory approach to social life, recognizing that collective progress depends on the cumulative actions of individuals exercising their freedom conscientiously. At the same time, James acknowledged that the challenges and anxieties that accompany the exercise of freedom, making choices in the absence of certainty, can be daunting, and the responsibility of shaping one's own life can feel overwhelming. Pragmatism does not deny these difficulties but offers tools for navigating them. The emphasis on experimentation, the acceptance of fallibility, and the commitment to continuous learning and adaptation. By embracing these pragmatic strategies, you can approach the exercise of agency with greater resilience and confidence. You recognize that mistakes and setbacks are not indictments of your character, but integral parts of the process of personal evolution. This perspective fosters a more compassionate and constructive relationship with yourself, supporting your ongoing efforts to live in accordance with your deepest values. Have you considered how embracing your agency more fully might alter the course of your life? What decisions have you been postponing out of fear or uncertainty? What commitments might you make today that could initiate meaningful change in your personal or professional trajectory? James's pragmatism offers a powerful affirmation of your capacity to shape your own destiny. It challenges you to step beyond passive acceptance and to engage actively with the possibilities that life presents. By recognizing the constructive power of your will, you claim your role as an agent of transformation, capable of influencing not only your own life but also the broader world in which you live. As we continue this exploration, keep in mind that pragmatism is not a call for reckless impulsivity but for thoughtful, deliberate engagement with life's complexities. It is an invitation to embrace the uncertainties of existence with courage and creativity, to view each choice as an opportunity for learning and growth, and to take responsibility for the impact of your actions. In this way, William James's pragmatism offers a framework for living that is both empowering and ethically grounded. It affirms your freedom while reminding you of your responsibility, encouraging you to navigate life's uncertainties with both resolve and humility. As we continue this exploration of William James's pragmatism, another vital aspect emerges: the role of emotion and instinct in shaping human thought and action. Contrary to purely rationalistic philosophies that elevate detached reasoning above all else, James recognized that human beings are deeply emotional and instinctual creatures. He argued that these elements are not obstacles to rationality, but essential components of the pragmatic process through which individuals engage with and make sense of the world. For James, the mind is not a sterile instrument of logic, but a dynamic interplay of feelings, desires, instincts, and reflective thought. This holistic view acknowledges that our beliefs and actions are often guided as much by what we feel and intuit as by what we logically deduce. Pragmatism, therefore, must account for the full range of human experience. Recognizing that emotions are not merely irrational distractions but critical signals that inform and shape our choices. Consider how often your most significant decisions have been influenced by emotional intuitions rather than purely analytical reasoning. Whether choosing a career path, entering or leaving a relationship, or pursuing a creative passion, your emotions likely played a central role in motivating and directing your actions. James's philosophy legitimizes this experiential reality, affirming that emotions are an indispensable part of the pragmatic method. This recognition does not mean surrendering to every fleeting impulse, but rather cultivating an awareness of how emotional and instinctual responses contribute to the evaluative process. Pragmatism invites you to listen to your emotional responses as valuable data points in assessing the practical consequences of your beliefs and choices. Have you ever dismissed an emotional reaction as irrational, only to later realize that it contained important insights about a situation or relationship? James would encourage you to integrate such experiences into your reflective process, using them as part of a broader pragmatic inquiry into what works best for your life. Moreover, James explored the relationship between emotion and belief in his influential work on religious experience. He observed that profound emotional experiences often serve as the foundation for deeply held beliefs, particularly in the realms of spirituality and morality. These experiences, he argued, cannot be dismissed simply because they are not derived from logical reasoning. Rather, they should be evaluated based on their transformative effects on the individual's life. This pragmatic approach to religious and moral experience underscores the importance of subjective, emotional engagement in the formation of meaningful beliefs. It challenges the notion that only empirically verifiable propositions are worthy of serious consideration, opening space for a more inclusive understanding of human knowledge that encompasses both rational analysis and effective experience. In your own life, consider how emotional experiences have shaped your core convictions. Have moments of joy, sorrow, awe, or love led you to adopt new beliefs or alter your course? Pragmatism encourages you to recognize the legitimacy of such experiences as sources of insight and guidance, while also subjecting them to reflective evaluation in light of their practical consequences. James's acknowledgement of the role of emotion also extends to his views on habit formation and personal transformation. He understood that lasting change often requires more than intellectual assent. It necessitates an emotional commitment that fuels sustained effort and perseverance. Without an effective investment in the goals we pursue, our resolutions tend to wither in the face of obstacles and setbacks. This insight is particularly relevant in the context of self-improvement and behavioral change. Pragmatism suggests that cultivating new habits and overcoming entrenched patterns is not merely a matter of willpower or rational planning, but also of engaging the emotional imagination. By vividly envisioning the benefits of change and connecting them to your deepest values and desires, you can generate the motivational energy necessary to sustain the process. Imagine applying this principle to a personal goal you've been struggling to achieve. Rather than relying solely on logical arguments about why the goal is worthwhile, you might also explore the emotional resonances that make it meaningful to you. How does achieving this goal align with your sense of identity, purpose, and fulfillment? Pragmatism invites you to harness these emotional currents as allies in your pursuit of change. Furthermore, James's pragmatic understanding of emotion highlights the importance of creating environments and communities that support emotional well-being. He recognized that social contexts profoundly influence emotional states, which in turn shape belief systems and behavioral patterns. By fostering supportive, empathetic, and encouraging environments, individuals and groups can facilitate more adaptive and constructive emotional responses. Consider how this perspective might inform your approach to leadership, education, or community engagement. Pragmatism suggests that effective leadership is not only about articulating rational strategies, but also about cultivating a shared emotional climate that motivates collective action and fosters resilience. Similarly, educational practices that engage students emotionally are more likely to inspire curiosity, persistence, and meaningful learning. On a broader scale, pragmatic attention to the interplay between emotion and belief can inform efforts to address social and political polarization. Recognizing that deeply held ideological commitments are often rooted in emotional experiences can foster greater empathy and facilitate more constructive dialogue. Pragmatism encourages moving beyond adversarial debates about abstract principles to focus on shared emotional concerns and practical solutions that enhance collective well-being. Have you reflected on how your emotional experiences influence your beliefs and interactions with others? Are there ways you might cultivate greater emotional awareness and empathy to support more effective communication and collaboration? By acknowledging the centrality of emotion and instinct, James's pragmatism offers a more comprehensive and realistic account of human cognition and behavior. It affirms that effective engagement with life's challenges requires not the suppression of emotion, but its thoughtful integration into decision-making processes. This integrative approach also has profound implications for mental health and personal development. It suggests that fostering emotional intelligence, the capacity to recognize, understand, and manage emotions, is an essential component of pragmatic living. By developing greater emotional awareness, you enhance your ability to evaluate beliefs and actions in light of their practical effects on your well-being and relationships. Moreover, this pragmatic emphasis on the interplay between emotion and reason supports a more compassionate self-understanding. It acknowledges that struggles with fear, anxiety, or doubt are not signs of personal weakness, but natural aspects of the human condition. Pragmatism offers tools for navigating these emotional experiences constructively, transforming them into opportunities for growth and resilience. As you continue to engage with the ideas of William James, consider how integrating emotional awareness into your pragmatic approach might enrich your personal and professional life. What practices could you adopt to cultivate greater emotional insight and resilience? How might such practices enhance your capacity to make effective decisions, build meaningful relationships, and contribute positively to your communities? By embracing the pragmatic integration of emotion, instinct, and reason, you position yourself to navigate the complexities of life with greater wisdom and authenticity. You recognize that human flourishing depends not on achieving a dispassionate detachment from emotion, but on engaging fully with the rich tapestry of affective and cognitive experiences that constitute our lives. In this way, William James's Pragmatism offers a vision of human agency that is both intellectually rigorous and deeply humane. It invites you to honor the full spectrum of your humanity, to approach life's challenges with both analytical acumen and emotional sensitivity, and to cultivate a dynamic, responsive engagement with the ever-evolving landscape of experience. Moving forward, it becomes essential to examine how William James's pragmatism extends beyond individual belief systems and personal transformation to encompass the broader domain of social progress and collective human flourishing. James recognized that the pragmatic method, when applied consistently, has the potential to reshape not only personal lives, but also the structures and institutions that govern societies. This social dimension of pragmatism underscores the interdependence of personal agency and collective responsibility. For James, the health of a society is directly linked to the practical consequences of its prevailing beliefs and practices. Institutions, traditions, and policies are not sacred relics to be preserved uncritically. They are human constructions subject to evaluation based on their impact on human well-being. Pragmatism thus calls for an ongoing assessment of social arrangements, encouraging reforms and innovations that promote greater justice, equity, and collective flourishing. Consider how this perspective challenges the inertia that often characterizes social and political systems. Rather than accepting the status quo as inevitable or immutable, pragmatism invites citizens to question whether existing institutions are effectively serving their intended purposes. If they are not, James's philosophy provides both the rationale and the imperative for pursuing change. Have you ever reflected on the ways in which your community structures either support or hinder human flourishing? Are there policies or practices that, when evaluated through a pragmatic lens, reveal themselves to be outdated, unjust, or counterproductive? Pragmatism empowers individuals and collectives to engage in this kind of critical reflection and to pursue reforms grounded not in abstract ideology but in practical outcomes. It encourages a results-oriented approach to social change, one that prioritizes interventions demonstrably effective in improving the quality of life for all members of society. Moreover, James's pragmatism promotes a pluralistic vision of social life. He recognized that diverse perspectives and approaches are essential for addressing the complex and multifaceted challenges that societies face. Pragmatism, by emphasizing practical consequences over dogmatic consistency, creates space for a multiplicity of solutions and encourages collaborative problem-solving. This pluralistic ethos fosters a more inclusive and democratic social order. It challenges hierarchical and authoritarian tendencies by affirming the value of diverse voices and experiences in shaping collective decisions. Pragmatism thus serves as a philosophical foundation for participatory democracy, civic engagement, and social innovation. In practical terms, applying pragmatic principles to social reform involves a willingness to experiment with new policies and practices, to monitor their effects carefully, and to adjust or abandon them as necessary based on empirical evidence. This iterative process mirrors the scientific method, emphasizing hypothesis testing, data collection, and continuous refinement. Consider how this pragmatic approach could transform contemporary debates about issues such as education, healthcare, or environmental policy. Rather than becoming mired in ideological battles or partisan gridlock, policymakers and citizens could focus on what works, on identifying and scaling interventions that produce tangible improvements in well-being and sustainability. This emphasis on practical outcomes does not negate the importance of moral principles, but situates them within a framework that demands evidence of their efficacy. Pragmatism insists that policies and practices must be judged not solely by their alignment with abstract ideals, but by their capacity to produce desired social outcomes. Furthermore, James's social pragmatism underscores the importance of fostering social environments that support individual growth and flourishing. He recognized that personal agency is profoundly shaped by social contexts, and that creating conditions conducive to personal development requires collective effort. This insight calls for a commitment to building communities characterized by empathy, mutual support, and opportunities for meaningful participation. Have you considered how you might contribute to creating such environments within your own spheres of influence? Whether through civic engagement, community organizing, or professional leadership, pragmatism encourages you to leverage your agency in service of collective well-being. This commitment to social engagement also extends to addressing systemic injustices and inequalities. Pragmatism demands a critical examination of social structures that perpetuate oppression and exclusion, urging reforms that promote greater equity and inclusion. By focusing on the practical consequences of social arrangements, pragmatism provides a powerful tool for identifying and dismantling barriers to human flourishing. Moreover, James's pragmatic emphasis on the interconnectedness of individual and collective well-being reinforces the moral imperative for social solidarity. It recognizes that the conditions necessary for personal growth, such as access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, are often dependent on broader social systems and policies. This perspective challenges the individualistic narratives that dominate much contemporary discourse, emphasizing instead the mutual responsibilities and shared interests that bind members of a society together. Pragmatism thus promotes a vision of social life rooted in interdependence, empathy, and collaborative action. Reflect on how this social dimension of pragmatism might inform your understanding of citizenship and civic responsibility. Are there ways in which you could engage more actively in efforts to improve your community, to advocate for policies that enhance collective well-being, or to support initiatives that address systemic injustices? James's social pragmatism also invites a more flexible and adaptive approach to governance. Recognizing the complexity and dynamism of social life, pragmatism encourages policymakers to embrace experimentalism, to pilot new initiatives, and to be willing to revise or abandon approaches that fail to achieve desired outcomes. This pragmatic governance model contrasts sharply with approaches that prioritize ideological purity or rigid adherence to tradition. It fosters a culture of innovation and responsiveness, better equipped to navigate the uncertainties and challenges of a rapidly changing world. Moreover, the pragmatic emphasis on consequences over intentions promotes a more accountable and transparent public sphere. By focusing on what policies actually achieve rather than what they purport to intend, Pragmatism provides a basis for holding institutions and leaders accountable for their performance. As we contemplate the social implications of pragmatism, it becomes clear that James's philosophy offers not only a guide for personal development, but also a framework for collective progress. It challenges both individuals and societies to engage in continuous reflection and adaptation, to pursue reforms grounded in empirical evidence and ethical commitment, and to cultivate environments that support human flourishing. In this way, pragmatism serves as both a philosophical orientation and a practical methodology for advancing the common good. It bridges the gap between personal aspiration and social responsibility, affirming that the two are inextricably linked. Have you thought about how your personal beliefs and actions contribute to the broader social systems of which you are a part? Are there opportunities for you to align your personal goals with efforts to promote collective well-being? By embracing the social dimension of pragmatism, you position yourself not only as an agent of personal transformation, but also as a participant in the ongoing project of building more just, equitable, and flourishing societies. This dual commitment reflects the holistic vision at the heart of William James's pragmatism, a vision that honors both the individual's quest for meaning and the collective's pursuit of the common good. As we approach the culmination of this exploration of William James's pragmatism, it becomes necessary to confront the ultimate implication of his philosophy, the idea that meaning itself is not discovered but made. For James, the search for meaning is not about uncovering some pre-existing, universal truth written into the fabric of the cosmos, but about engaging in a dynamic, ongoing process of constructing significance through your beliefs, choices, and actions. This insight carries both immense freedom and profound responsibility. It liberates you from the paralyzing quest for an external authority to dictate the purpose of your life. But it also places the burden squarely on your shoulders to actively create that purpose, to forge meaning through the deliberate shaping of your experiences and commitments. Consider what this means for the way you navigate your personal and professional life. Rather than seeking some ultimate justification or grand narrative to validate your existence, you can focus on cultivating a life that is meaningful to you based on your values, passions, and aspirations. Pragmatism empowers you to see that meaning is not given. It is enacted, embodied, and realized in the choices you make and the relationships you nurture. Have you reflected recently on the kind of meaning you are constructing through your daily actions? Are your current beliefs and behaviors leading you toward a life that feels authentic, purposeful, and fulfilling? James's pragmatism encourages you to approach this question not with despair at the absence of objective certainty, but with a sense of creative possibility. Life, under the pragmatic lens, is not a puzzle to be solved, but a canvas to be painted, a narrative to be authored. Each decision you make is a brushstroke contributing to the larger portrait of your existence. This creative responsibility extends to how you interpret the events and circumstances you encounter. Pragmatism suggests that your interpretations are not neutral reflections of reality but active constructions that shape your emotional responses, motivations, and future choices. By adopting interpretations that enhance your resilience, hope, and engagement, you can transform challenges into opportunities for growth and meaning-making. Moreover, James recognized that this process of constructing meaning is inherently social. The narratives you create about yourself and your place in the world are influenced by, and in turn influence, the communities and cultures you inhabit. Pragmatism thus underscores the importance of engaging thoughtfully with your social environments, contributing to narratives and practices that support collective flourishing. This relational aspect of meaning-making invites you to consider how your personal quest for significance intersects with the lives of others. Are you contributing to narratives that foster empathy, inclusion, and mutual support, or are you reinforcing patterns of division, exclusion, and harm? Pragmatism challenges you to align your meaning-making efforts with values that promote not only personal fulfillment but also communal well-being. At the same time, James acknowledged the existential anxiety that can arise from the realization that meaning is contingent and constructed. Without an external guarantor of significance, you might be tempted to retreat into nihilism or cynicism. But pragmatism offers an alternative response to embrace the creative freedom and moral agency inherent in your role as a meaning maker, to recognize that the absence of predetermined purpose opens space for genuine authorship and authentic engagement. Perspective encourages a more proactive and intentional approach to life, rather than drifting aimlessly or adhering passively to inherited scripts. Pragmatism invites you to take ownership of your narrative, to make deliberate choices that reflect your evolving understanding of what constitutes a good and meaningful life. Consider how this pragmatic approach might influence your response to adversity. Instead of interpreting setbacks and losses as evidence of inherent meaninglessness, you can view them as raw material for constructing new forms of significance. By reframing difficulties as opportunities for growth and reorientation, you transform them from sources of despair into catalysts for personal evolution. This capacity for meaning-making is particularly vital in moments of transition, uncertainty, or crisis. Pragmatism equips you with the tools to navigate such periods with resilience and creativity, to engage with uncertainty not as a threat but as a space of potential and reinvention. Have you considered how you might harness this pragmatic approach to construct more empowering narratives about your own life? What stories could you tell yourself that would inspire greater courage, compassion, and commitment? By embracing the role of active meaning maker, you become not only the protagonist of your own story, but also its author. This position of authorship brings with it a sense of dignity and agency, affirming that your life is not merely something that happens to you, but something you are continually creating through your choices, interpretations, and actions. James's pragmatism thus offers a vision of human existence characterized by freedom, responsibility, and creativity. It challenges you to reject passivity and to engage fully with the project of living, to construct a life that is not only effective in navigating practical challenges, but also rich in meaning, connection, and purpose. As we conclude this exploration, consider how you might carry these insights forward into your daily life. What beliefs and practices could you adopt to cultivate a more intentional and fulfilling existence? How might you contribute to creating environments that support others in their own quests for meaning and flourishing? If this message resonated with you, consider liking this video, subscribing to stay connected with future explorations of transformative ideas, and sharing it with 3 friends who could also benefit from these powerful insights. Together, we can continue to engage with the wisdom of William James and apply it to the ongoing project of living thoughtfully, courageously, and creatively.